Hey, Viking fans, we got Johnny Diamonds. Not Johnny Football, Johnny Diamonds, because he's finding diamonds in the rough for the Minnesota Vikings offense. Next in 3, 2, 1. Gather around, Skull brothers and sisters. This is Skull World Live, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. I'm your host, D Shizzy, and I got Johnny Football here to give us his 10 picks that make good fits for the Vikings throughout the draft. We're not going to focus on the first round only on this show. We're going to deep dive, and I sent Johnny Football into the NFL archives to pull out 10 gems, and he came back with them. Let's go. Let's go. Hey, Johnny, what's up, man?
Hey, Dave. How you doing, man?
All right. I got Dave, another Dave in the house. Dave Thibodeau.
Oh, there we go.
D Fizzy. We had D Fizzy in the house. I don't know. Someone called me D Nutty the other day, and I said, well, I want to be D Shizzy, so since I'm Michalski. All right. Well, hey, so what were you looking for when you were looking for 10 fits for the Vikings? What would you consider a fit? Like, why are you looking for specific? What are you looking for specifically?
So I started with kind of general needs, obviously. So there's a lot of wide receivers on here. There's a couple guards, a couple running backs. But once I got into those positions, I started to look for, in receivers, I looked for after the catch ability. And also kind of those big body, go up and get it red zone threat type of receivers that I feel like will be complementary to Justin Jefferson. So kind of either the yak monsters or the go up and get it kind of guys when I was looking at receivers. When I looked at running back, it was sort of I feel like we've got the gadgety guy in Kenny. Madison can kind of do it all. So I was really just looking for a workhorse back to potentially usurp that role that Dalvin filled for us. So the couple of guys I highlighted are real horses in the backfield. And then when I looked at interior offensive line, I know what the Vikings fans want. I know what I want, and it's a strong guy who's not going to get pushed around on the interior. So the couple of guys I'm going to bring up really have strong anchors. I think will actually solve a problem for this offensive line if they are taken, and would both probably push Ed Ingram right away and provide some competition there. But we've got Ezra Cleveland on a contract year as well. So once assuming that that wiry guy moves on, we've got some real maulers that we're going to talk about here today.
Yeah, I don't mind. I like the idea of bringing someone in because, Ezra Cleveland, unfortunately for him, has been playing out of position his entire Vikings career. And at times you like him and at times you don't. And I could see us really solidifying that line if we could just fix that one, fix one more spot. Maybe that'll help out. But yeah, I can see why you went out and got a couple offensive linemen for us. I know you got a couple running backs for us, and I noticed there's no tackles, so we weren't too worried about getting a tackle.
I think we're set there, yeah.
Or a tight end. We don't need tight ends either anymore. Which was a problem last year going in. We didn't know who our tight end was going to be, and honestly, it kind of worked out right with the trade. Receiver wise, you said that you were looking at guys that could run after the catch, right? Like that was your saying, and I did see a lot of that in the guys that you picked. But there's other attributes to them that I'm sure, because I went and looked at them. Highlight reels, right? After you sent me your list, and I'm like, yeah, these are some good guys. And there's one guy I don't necessarily gonna clamor for, but I'll point him out when we get to him. But most of them were like, holy crap. I told you, like, I'm already in love with one of them. I'm like, I didn't even look at a video of him yet, and that was the first time seeing him, and I was love at first sight. and we'll get
Right.
to who that was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's get this graphic. It's a little small, so you won't be able to see it. But I'm gonna put it up here. Um, he picked out Zay Flowers, wide receiver, Boston College; Quentin Johnson, wide receiver, TCU; Cedric Tillman, wide receiver, Tennessee; Steve Avila, offensive guard, TCU; at Perry, wide receiver, Wake Forest; Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver, Tennessee; Kendre Miller, running back, TCU; Chandler Zavala, offensive guard, North Carolina State; Dwayne McBride, running back, UAB; Marvin Mims, wide receiver, Oklahoma. So let me pull that up. Let's start with the first guy, and you can kind of talk me through the players you chose here. I've done a video on this. I think everybody's in love with this guy, and that's
Mm-hmm.
Zay Flowers. Tell me about him. Why is he a fit for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first trait I was trying to identify in this wide receiver class was that juice after the catch. And not only is he a pretty refined route runner, um, for his experience level, he is just nasty after the catch. I mean, he can make guys miss. He has really good contact balance, actually. He's able to fight through contact. Um, and he's a guy who I think you can use in a lot of creative ways, which is why he's actually my number one fit. And he and Quentin Johnston are probably more of a pipe dream tier just because they might go in those early teens. Um, the other eight, um, oh, as a Packers fan,
Yeah, I see the cheese. Hey,
yeah,
thanks for being on the show. Thanks for being on the show. Are you guys finally going to draft wide receivers?
I give him shit
You know,
about that all the time.
are you going to
Make him
already
feel like,
draft wide receivers, or finally draft wide receivers now that you got rid of Aaron Rodgers? I
yeah,
find that hysterical. I
that's what I
suppose you
hope.
probably do too.
I do. That's what I hope. But he and Quentin Johnston are sort of that. If they fall to 23, that's somewhere you might want to pull the trigger, even if the initial plan was trading back. But they also might be gone before they get to us. So that's why they're a little less attainable. I think they're pretty high up on some people's boards. But what I pulled from was the big consensus board that compiles, I think it's 40 big boards, and kind of averages them out. And Zay Flowers was 31 on that big old consensus board. So, granted, he has been doing some workouts apparently with Bill O'Brien of the New England Patriots. He was one of the coaches at the Senior Bowl, so maybe they just made friends there. But he said something about how he's learning the offense, which they're sitting at 14 doesn't inspire a ton of confidence in me that we'll be able to get him. But I think of all these receiver prospects, that Zay Flowers is at the very least the archetype of what would fit best in this offense. I mean, we were talking about maybe going out and getting McCole Hardman at a certain point.
Yeah,
And
this guy's
I
much better than Hardman, I
he's
think.
yes, I think he's better than Hardman, and he's a guy you can use as a pure receiver. I think he's better than Hardman. But he's also a guy you can use in those similar ways: the jet sweeps, the end arounds, the wide receiver screens. He could be really dynamic horizontally, but he can also stretch the field pretty well. 4.42 speed, 1.49 10-yard
Johnny, that
split.
sounds dirty.
Yeah,
Horizontally, okay.
yeah, but
Horizontally,
1.49.
vertically, or oh,
You know,
okay. He's
out in the
sideways.
screen
He's
game
good
a little bit.
sideways. All
Yes.
right.
Pause.
Hey, do you got any
But
stats on this guy? Like combine stats on this guy?
yeah, 4.42 40.
You had me at 4.4.
1.49. Yeah, 1.49 10-yard split,
That's
which
an insane.
is faster than Jalen Hyatt from an acceleration standpoint. Um, it's the fastest 10-yard split in the draft among all receivers until you get down to, I can't even remember his name, a 5'7" guy who had a 1.47. So his burst is the best in the class. And, I think that's something that's going to be extremely applicable to this offense when you're able to run Jefferson and stretch the field with Jefferson. And yeah, that's a good take.
Sweep. We have CJ Ham for the jet sweeps. We don't need no jet sweeps. We got our tight end screen and our fullback jet sweeps, and that's how we run our offense here in the Minnesota Vikings.
That's right. But we can mix it up a little bit with a guy like this. So he's kind of my pipe dream.
We run the gadget plays with the slowest players. That's what we do. That's how we run it. They don't expect it coming. That's why we do it.
Exactly.
But you got big fans in Bandito and Mary Fisk.
Yeah.
The chicken soup for my soul of the Minnesota Vikings, Mary Fisk in the house.
That's right.
CJ Ham, really? What? He's just kidding, I'm sure, Michael O.
Yeah, that's why they inspired him, though. Jet sweep machine.
Yeah, Michael. Hey, anybody wants to join the show, I put the StreamYard in here. We'll give you your 5-minute take on your favorite player and then throw you back to the real world. But here, I'm more than happy to have somebody on the show who wants to sell us on a player, man.
Yeah, it'll be like
I'll even try to do a video on it if you've sold me on it. But
cool. I'll dig up some tape.
So the next guy on the list is Quentin Johnson.
Yes.
I told you like right away. I want him now after watching him play.
Yeah.
Start off with his size. Tell me about his size first.
6'3",
because I'll have a comment.
6'3", 208 to 210 or so. And still, he wasn't at the combine. I think it was a pro day thereafter. But he ran a 4.51 at that size. And he's a guy who loosely reminds me of, after the catch, loosely reminds me of like an Anquan Bolden kind of player. Like he's so sturdy through tackles. And he really can make some guys, really can make some arm tackles fall off and gain some yards after the catch, which was kind of the chief regression in Adam Thielen's game. You know, he was still able to go up and get it. He was still able to create some separation at times. But where he really dipped, I think, was his juice after he got the ball in his hands. And that's something that this guy has in spades. Not quite as refined of a pass catcher necessarily, not quite as refined of a route runner. But, you know, if you hit this guy on a crosser, he can really do some damage with his size that he brings to the table.
One thing, even though you may, I don't know, we only see the highlights, right? So, I only see the highlights. So you saw some all 22, but when I was
you'll find out I watched TCU offense plenty once you see the whole list.
Yeah. When I was looking at him, the one thing I noticed, and I saw this in Najigba, I don't think that, different size players, but I saw spatial awareness. Like he knew where to get open. Like there was some separation there. He knew where to go. He was deceptive on, I saw some people just like lose him. They just lost him as like maybe he had another gear or something, but he was getting open. And he caught with his hands, but where he shined for being so, 6'3", he's a pretty big dude. He's not big, 220, right? But he's tall. Is it his ability to make people miss, and in breakaway speed? I thought he was, when you said 4.51, I was like, this guy don't look 4.51. He looks faster than that.
Yeah, 1.59 in the 10 split.
So he's not quick, right?
Yeah, I think he really has that long speed.
Yeah, that's what I was that was exactly the words I was thinking in my head, was long speed. But when he caught the ball, and then it's usually wide open, it seemed, he was able to make people miss and break it longer. And we were talking about jet sweeps earlier. I saw this jet sweep where he just ran away from people. Like they could not react fast enough to him. And that's what once he gets his momentum going, I think he's gone. I
don't
really
want to let him get up to a gallop.
Yeah, you don't want to. People will have to jam him off the line, otherwise he's going to eat them up. Is the way I looked at it.
Yep. Yep. So and he might be one that he might be the first receiver off the board. On that big consensus board, he was 13. I think a lot of that has to do, though, with the earlier mocks and the earlier boards that came out. I think the more people start to analyze wide receiver one isn't really a consensus. You've also got a lot of different body types in that top 4 or 5 wide receiver tier. So it's going to have a lot to do with what teams prefer and what teams are looking for. If they're looking for a true X, it's probably Quentin Johnston. But if you're looking for a guy to fill in the slot and play a little bit more inside out, it's probably a Jones. It's probably a JSN, or excuse me, a Flowers. It's probably a JSN. I was thinking Zay Jones on the Jags, but so it's going to be interesting the way the board falls and who goes after whom when analyzing this receiver class. But I think it's still plausible for really any of these top guys to fall. It could really go a lot of different ways.
Now, so right now Johnny has picked 2 people that aren't going to get to us. So let's move.
Yeah.
Get them. But hey, they've been mocked to us, I believe. I know Quentin
Right.
Johnson
There's a chance.
Was a recent one. The next guy we're going to talk about on this list is Cedric Tillman, wide receiver, Tennessee. The other guy you have higher on this, was this any type of order?
It is. So it's 1 through 5 up top, 6 through 10 on the bottom.
So and this guy is ranked ahead of the Blitnikoff winner. All right, and he's on the same team. Tell me about him, man.
So yeah, I just feel that this is a better fit than Hyatt, and I know the burner field stretcher is an attractive thing, but we didn't have any. Yeah, we didn't have any trouble dealing with off coverage. We didn't have any trouble with eating up cushion between corners when they played off. What we had trouble doing was beating press man, was beating aggressive defensive coverages. And this is a guy who, if Jefferson has an issue with that at all on one side of the field, if they've got the safety over top, and even when he beats his corner, he's got a second guy. He's got a north-south double team. This is a guy in Cedric Tillman who can seriously wall off some cornerbacks at the catch point. And even if he's not creating a ton of separation, he's almost got this basketball player box out to the way he runs his routes. He does have pretty good burst when he cuts and he stops on a dime, and in and out of his breaks, he does have some juice there. He's a good all around receiver in that regard. But when he's up the boundary, when he's over the middle on a short post or something like that, even if he's not creating a ton of separation, he's a guy who can really dominate at the catch point. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. TCU receiver, not a ton of.
On the list.
He's on the list. But this is a guy who can really beat press, and he can win against tight coverage. So I think when you're thinking about what the Vikings need to come into this season wanting to be able to counter, Cedric Tillman has all of those things in spades, to a degree that Hyatt doesn't. And he wins in other ways. I think they're, if all things are equal, they're probably a little closer on my board. But I do prefer Cedric Tillman for the Vikings for all those reasons. And he has, he's not particularly dynamic after the catch. And I know I said I stressed that. But he does.
So this was the guy I was pointing. I was saying when we got to him, I would point out that there's one guy in here that isn't great after the catch, and I was so worried that he reminded me of what I thought of Laquan Treadwell.
I literally thought the same thing. I thought Treadwell, but I think he's a much this isn't saying a ton. I think he's a much headier player. I think he is a more refined route runner at this stage. But
And
his
Treadwell
route
had come off
velocity,
an injury, so that could have hampered his.
yeah, and
But yeah.
Cedric Tillman did have an ankle injury this year,
Oh shit! It's off
in
my
week
board.
3, but he came back and played the last 3 games of the season, fought through it, and was
Well,
just
that's
as
pretty good.
productive as the season prior. And he didn't have anything to gain with his draft stock. He had everything to lose, but he
Yeah,
fought
even like
back to the injury and came back.
even the Jigba, he didn't bother to do anything. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Something to be said. But he's a guy who can really win in the red zone. And I think that
That's where I
is,
saw it. That's where I saw
yeah,
him shine. And you're right about boxing people out. If it's going to be thrown to him, he finds a way to get it. But maybe the separation isn't there like some of the other players on this list because he
right.
doesn't have that elite speed. He's hard to bring down. He's a
Yep.
big dude. What's his size? Give me some numbers on that.
So he's listed 6'3", 215.
Yeah.
4.54 speed. So a little bit slower in the 40 than a guy like Quentin Johnston. But he's better acceleration, a little bit quicker in the 10 split, 157 at the combine. And he's a guy too. Once he gets moving, he's a little tough, a little difficult to catch. 4.54 is
I like
good
cone
speed.
drills. What do you got for cone drills? Do you have cone
Yeah,
drills?
let me hit the archives here.
Because Najigba was ridiculous, right? On the cone drill, and that's why.
Right,
That's why. And
and
now, go ahead.
yeah, that's why he projects as such a good slot receiver. Is those shorter routes, um, in and out of his breaks fast, the zig routes, and so okay, that's what I thought. I didn't see it on
What's up,
this.
McAndrews? Skull Vikings. Let's go. Let's go. Hey, I put StreamYard in the chat if anybody wants to join and sell me on somebody,
Yeah,
or come on
no
here and
sweat,
tell
no yard.
Johnny Diamond's here. He's finding diamonds. That's what he does. And
Tillman
tell
did
him
elected
how
not to
stupid
run
he
the
is
three
for his
cone.
picks.
Tillman elected not to run the 3 cone, so it's all eye test.
It's bullshit. Then he's get him out of here. You don't no 3 cone drill. He's not getting drafted.
Yeah,
I'm
Johnson did the
kidding.
same thing
That's all
actually.
Najigba did. He's like, he's
Right.
said, screw all this other stuff. I'm just gonna do the 3 cone drill. As
Yeah.
he was like, he Deion Sanders it. 40
Mm-hmm.
time no, it's all about 3 cone drill. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm just do that and go.
4.5 for him when he unofficial when he did run, which is faster than a lot of people thought JSN was going to be. But he's a guy who is probably in that tier that the Vikings will have a difficult time getting at 23 or later. And of those several guys in that tier, Johnston and Zay Flowers, I feel like would be better fits in the offense. So that's most of the reason he's left off. But if he falls to 23, sure.
You're
I think
talking
he's a
about
fine player as well.
Najigba?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
But I
And what
prefer
about
the fit to the other
Addison?
guys.
Someone brought up Addison.
Yeah, I have similar feelings on Addison as I do with Hyatt in the sense that if what we're faced with is that press man at the line of scrimmage, if that's what dogs us, is the cover one double on Jefferson, and the opening that play up is reliant on the receiver 2 getting off a press and getting separation like Thielen wasn't able to do, like KJ Osborne wasn't able to do terribly consistently. I think that's going to present the same problem. Really slender frame. He's shifty off of press at the college level, but when these teams that have really vexed us, when we see a Philly, when we see a Green Bay, who still has a very solid secondary, and we saw what they were able to do to Jefferson and company when they called their game plan in a creative way. We saw what Wink Martindale and the Giants were able to do to a certain extent with relative no-name corners. Fabian Moreau was playing out of his mind. I think that's going to present the same issue, and Addison, Hyatt just aren't as much of a direct counter to the things we've had issues with, if that makes sense.
Is there thoughts? Don't want to beat a dead horse here, but someone who could stretch the field, like some of the guys that you may pick may be later day two.
Mhm.
That we would do us if we, let's say, went defense first round, and some of these guys were there. Just a guy that could stretch the field would be maybe an asset to us. But
Yeah,
obviously, we want the full package. But do you see value in that, like a Hyatt?
I do. I do, and that's why he's listed. I think if KJ really takes a step forward, um, and off the line of scrimmage, if he works on his release package, learns a few things from Jefferson, if he's able to shake that and start to win against tight coverage at the line of scrimmage, then I think Hyatt becomes a huge asset. He played out of the slot 88% of the time at Tennessee. Jalen Hyatt did. So, and that's going to create some natural separation. A lot of that was, stack to one side of the field, and you saw Jefferson and Thielen do that plenty, where they'll have twin stems, and Jefferson is able to kind of gain some separation just based on that trickery there. You kind of have like almost a ball screen, a certain point where those stack routes kind of turn out, and that's what Hyatt thrived on. And he's also able to just eat up cushion. If you get 5-7 yards off by the cornerback, he's able to eat up that space so quickly that by the time the cornerback's turning and running, he's gone, and he's tough to catch up with. So operating out of the slot, you're going to see much less press. But that fit, I think, has a little bit more to do with KJ taking a step forward. So if they feel like he's ready there, I think Hyatt's still a viable pick. I just don't like him until day two, and he's getting gassed up to, late round one as well. I wouldn't be in love with him at 23. I think he can do plenty more than run the go ball. Don't get me wrong, but I think specifically for this team, countering what they've had issues with, he presents similar problems. But again, if he's operating out of the slot and you've got KJ out wide, you run some of that stack that Tennessee ran, I think you're going to, and you find ways to use him. I think he could be plenty effective. A guy who I like really late to do similar things is Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma. He's a burner, about 5'11". One of his issues, though, and you might get some Troy Williamson PTSD Vikings fans, is like concentration drops. He had a few wide
You jumped
open.
all the way to 10 on me, man.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, we'll go with Mims. Marvin Mims. My son's name is Marvin, so I already like him.
You're halfway in. All right. He's fine. Speedy, shifty guy. Sort of a diet Zay Flowers of this class.
He did look shifty. And you're right, he's not as dynamic, but he's pretty solid, man.
4.38 in the 40, and he's just a 1/10 of a second. He's 100th of a second slower than Zay Flowers in the 10-yard split. So I mean, he's got the field stretching, physical tools. Just not as well-rounded of a receiver as we'd get with Zay. So depending on the value there, I'd be okay with a later round pick, late day 2, early day 3 on Mims, just because I think he could provide. Like he's kind of Rager-y to me. And the front office is obviously interested in that archetype of receiver, but I think you'd have similar drawbacks to the Jalen Rager fit, in my opinion.
So let me answer this. Hey, Connor, that is me texting. I'm inviting people to join the show. So yeah, if you want to join the show, I've put the StreamYard. Like, you can come on the show and tell us.
Yeah, it's like calling into the radio.
I'm sorry I didn't make that clear. My bad. Yeah, this is it's like calling into a radio show, but you actually will show up. You'll be right below us, and you can tell us who you want to draft. So, guys, if you want, let me put it in here.
We have a segment on that.
This is me putting in the link. I just did that. You can copy paste that and you can do it on your phone, in a and just join the show, man. I want to hear from you guys. Even use Zones in the house. The guy who gave
Uh-oh.
me the nickname D Nutty.
Be nutty.
Um, he was on. Was he on our show or was he on the?
He
He
was
was
with
on.
you and
Yeah,
Justin.
he was on the Skull Experience last week.
Yeah.
Like, do it, Connor. Do it. Bob's peer pressure. Do it, Connor. Do it.
Sweet. Let's I guess while we're on it, we'll get to my last receiver and then we can talk other positions.
Is
That
this
sounds good.
this guy?
It is A.T.
I liked
Perry.
him. I thought Quentin Johnson and him were pretty comparable.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
No, and I think you get better value with A.T. Perry based on draft position. I also think he maybe not quite as much juice after the catch, but for a wiry, longer receiver, he can move after the catch. You know, he can catch those curls and make somebody miss right after. He can catch the dig over the middle and gain a little bit of yardage after catch.
I liked his. He did some route running where he found the open spot. He was deceptive. Yes. He opened the space up. He showed it. He didn't. It's like a poker hand. He didn't show He didn't show where he was catching it. Like he could see it coming.
Hands.
Yeah, late hands. Yeah. And that's what I really liked about this guy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's a very veteran trait. You know, it's something Thielen was great at. Thielen with his late hands was one of the reason. Yeah, it's the reason Thielen was able to catch it over the Saints player's helmet. He's got those late hands. It's why he was part of the reason why he was so effective in the red zone.
Mims had some crazy ass catch. Did you see that crazy ass catch where he caught it behind the guy's back?
Yeah,
it was insane.
Yeah, that was one of the best catches of the year.
One of the best ones I've ever seen. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so he's got that upside. I think a lot of the knocks on him are like the concentration drops. It's very, very low floor, high ceiling, play to play. But A.T. Perry, my favorite thing about him, the late hands sort of play into this, but is just his ball tracking at that size. I mean, some of the catches he
balls, guys. He's very good at it. Let's go.
Some of the catches he made right over the shoulder were incredible. He's got.
I like that. Yeah, I saw. I know what you're talking about. I saw what you're saying. Yeah, definitely.
And that was week 1 this season. He's does a great job getting to where he needs to be while the ball's in flight. Like he does show late hands, but even if those hands are early, he's got that frame to win at the catch point. But he's not the cookie cutter 6'3", 6'4" receiver where you're like, okay, he's a contested catch guy. He's a throw the ball up guy, and that's what we'll use him for. He's dynamic in and out of breaks. He's a very refined route runner. He doesn't waste much movement. And I think, he's 87 on that big consensus board. He'll probably go a little sooner, but this is a guy you could target if we're trading back, maybe late second round, maybe with that third round pick, if we stick and pick. I think you could get much better value on a guy like A.T. Perry while getting a lot of the positive attributes you'd get from a Cedric Tillman, from a Quentin Johnston, just from a fit standpoint and what he can provide physically. And with a little bit of juice after the catch. He's not as sturdy of a runner after the catch as Johnston and Tillman, but he's shifty for a wiry guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think he was elite like you said in that, but he reminded me of Quentin Johnson as far as getting open, like separating himself, like you said, late hands and all that. But he wasn't, what am I saying? After the catch, he wasn't just gonna fall down after he caught it. He was going to try to take it somewhere, and I liked it.
More so than you'd expect.
What do you got for a 40? What you said, he's 6'3", right? So that's great. I love that. They'd be the
Yep.
tallest receiver we have right now, so that'd be good.
Yep.
What was he 40 time and weight?
4.47.
All right, he's
4.47.
faster than Quentin,
Yep. 6'3", 200 even. So a little thinner than the other
but
guys.
still fine, right? It's 200
Fine.
pounds is for
And a
his height is like
1.5,
185 or something.
176, I think he was listed at the
Or
combine.
what? Yeah, sorry, but
Yeah.
he doesn't look it. Honestly, he don't look it.
Not
He's a
quite.
pretty
Yeah.
muscular dude.
Right. But
To put some weight on.
1.5 even in the 10-yard split for A.T. Perry.
Oh, that's
So his
nice.
acceleration's really, really good for his size as well. He's not just a long strider. He's quick into his quick out of his release, I should say, and just he's deceptive. He's a very deceptive athlete because you look at the frame, and you don't expect the shiftiness that you get from A.T. Perry when he's running routes or just after the catch.
And I think that's what we loved about Thielen. Guys that
Yeah.
somehow got open, man. They just
Yep.
or they and with and sorry holy shit. Um, well, just I'll just stick to Thielen. Thielen, he was a great route runner, and
Mhm.
these guys I think maybe have the potential to be. And Justin Jefferson is a great route runner. He's not
Yes.
top 10 in the league, or maybe he is, but he's not top 5, but he's close. I would take him just as good as anybody in that scenario. And I think the Quentin Johnson and the A.T. Perry have that potential, I think, that they could be. And that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they have that awareness, like where to position themselves between the cornerback and the sideline.
Mhm.
Drive them in and then bail out the last second, like you said,
Yeah.
late hands. I think they both those guys have that, and so far out of the list you gave me, those were the two I was like, I really like
Yeah.
them.
They've both got great feel, and Johnston in particular is just a ball of clay for a coaching staff. He's really young. He's got good feel, especially finding that soft spot in the zone, and he's dynamic after the catch. So if you can just tweak some things, work on his refinement, he could be a really good receiver in this league.
So we got a guard here from TCU because that's your favorite team.
Turns out,
Apparently you watch them all the time. We
turns
had
out,
Steve Avila, Bob Avila's uh, long lost son, offensive guard TCU. Now,
yeah,
for just this is what I saw. And then he's a pretty decent pass blocker, from what I saw, and he wasn't necessarily as good of a run blocker because he had high pads, and maybe the footwork wasn't there on the running game as much as it was on the passing game. But he has great hand placement, and I think he can. Yeah, he stonewalled people on pass
yes,
protection. So tell me where
yep.
I'm wrong.
I think you're right. He's one of, in my opinion, the best pass blockers, regardless of position on the O line in this draft. Um, from a technique standpoint, I think he's right up there with a Skoronski. Um, he has one of the strongest anchors I think I've seen, um, from a collegiate player in this whole draft cycle. I mean, you mentioned it. He doesn't budge. There are so many times you watch the TCU pocket. You see Dugan start to panic because from four sides or four spots, the pocket's starting to recede and it's starting to come to him. And then you see Steve Avila at left guard hasn't budged yet, or he's only given up 2 steps, and he's actually just kind of sidestepping with the guy at
Mhm.
that point.
And they
Um,
look frustrated.
they do, they do, and I mean, and that's a lot of people's three tech that he's not budging on. He's not giving any ground. Um, he's a very very aware pass blocker. When you see stunts and loops come to his side, he passes those off really smoothly. And yeah, my biggest 6'3", 330. My biggest note on him is he's a break from what became the norm in the late Rick Spielman era, which was let's get a fast offensive line. Let's run wide zone. Let's run halfback screens as much and into the ground as much as we can, um, and get these guys reach blocking. In the run game, Steve Avila is maybe not quite as refined. Doesn't get to the second level, like an Ezra Cleveland, like a Garrett Bradbury.
Yeah, I
But
didn't get to see much of that of
yeah,
him
but I
doing
think that's
that.
an even trade-off. I think that's an even trade-off when you're not giving ground on the interior in the pass game, and when the Vikings might go to more inside zone or tight zone, however you want to call it. They might go to more power. They might run more counter than they have in the past, especially if Dalvin moves on and they go to some combination of Madison, Chandler, one of the guys I have yet to talk about. I think that could signal, especially lining up on the same side as Darisaw, left guard, left tackle. That could be a really powerful group, and they could be some movers on that side. But I think that the most value he brings is as a pass blocker, lined up next to Darisaw on the blind side, keeping that pocket clean. And that's got to be what we're looking for when we look for a guard. You're not going to get another wide zone tackle convert to usurp Ezra Cleveland. That can't be the direction you stay. Bradbury's on a pretty malleable contract, one you can get off of pretty easily, and Steve Avila's played some center. So whether whether it's pushing Ed Ingram from a competition standpoint early, or that's taking over for Cleveland eventually. Year 2 is when guards in the NFL really start to figure it out and start to come into their own. So that could be a perfect timeline to take a guy like this early day 2.
Yeah, and that I'm on the side that Ed Ingram's gonna figure it out this year, because I thought he did well for a rookie.
Better the back half of the season for sure.
People want to talk about, oh, he stepped on Kirk Cousins' feet. Oh, and I even heard someone on Purple Daily call him an idiot in the offseason. I don't think this guy's an idiot. I think he's a team player. I don't like his history, but he's on the team, so we got to live with it.
Yeah.
But as far as a football player goes, he's a good football player. And I seen, like you said, second half, even though one of those games was in the second half where it did cost us a little bit, but that was like the only mistake he made the whole game. So yeah, I don't know why people rag on him so bad. Like, we need to upgrade there. No, Cleveland was a more of a liability than Ed Ingram was, I thought, in the second half of the season. But we were without our center. Who knows what would have happened? But I think that we have all 5 back. Something's going to be communication. The knowing what to do is going to be more there the second year than they was because this is the first time we've had an offensive line the same 2 years in a row than I can remember. I couldn't tell you, because we've had really bad offensive lines since 2000. Well, it's even 2017 was like we're ranked 17th, and that was the best year in a while. But back when AP was in his prime was probably the last time we had good offensive lines.
It's got to be since it was like McKinney, Hutchinson, Burke, Hicks, Lodeholt. I think they had 2 years together.
I just felt something when you said those names. Right. Like, oh my god, we had those players at one time. I miss them.
Long ago.
I miss them. One ran for governor.
Yeah.
Or lieutenant governor. That's but right. Here's another guard that you brought. Oh yeah, what's his size? What's Avila's size?
6'3", 330.
That's a big dude. Yeah, he
Yes.
looked big. He looked
Yes.
chunky.
And I think Ingram might have been kind of a hint that they're starting to go in that more power scheme direction, or they want to eventually.
Let's get light offensive linemen. I thought it was
Yeah,
a
that
terrible idea. And that's what
seems
we've
like
been doing ever since we got whatever offense we decided to start running under Zimmer.
it.
It's weird. He's so old school, but like let's have light offensive linemen. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah. And this is an offense that might start, and people have talked about this, that might start leaning into more the Shanahan branch of that tree than the McVay branch, which is heavier personnel.
One
Niners
of my
drafted a guy like Aaron Banks, who's 6'5", 335, to
one of
play
my
next to
thoughts
Trent Williams.
there is like, okay, he can get to the second level, but hey, you got to block the first guy first. I want the first level taken care of.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter if you're going to block the second level if the guy is stuffed at the line.
right.
Oh yeah, run pass, Bob
There you
Swede.
go, Bob.
Cleveland was a stud tackle in Boise. Yes, and he should be a tackle. He should be a tackle, and that's one of those
Hmm.
situations where I feel bad for the guy because I know he's a good football player, but he should be. Hell, he could be a left tackle somewhere, but at least a right tackle. I think he's more comfortable on the left side, but yeah,
Hmm.
he could be a starter in this league, and he's losing money right now. He should
Yeah,
want out of Minnesota so he can play tackle. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with him, man?
yeah. And Alex Madison will tell you that. Darrell Madison will tell you that. Um, Ezra was a tackle in college, and he was great. Um, so he was kind of pigeonholed into playing guard, and that doesn't show up as much in the run game, especially when we're running as much wide zone. But when you
Wow.
have to anchor, and when you have to counter this interior rush, that's when it shows up. That's when the tackle frame shows up. That's when the tackle footwork shows up. Dylan, that would
I get a
be
hot take
interesting.
here.
That would be interesting.
Well, so the only reason I don't think that is because there's very little trade value in a guy at the end of his contract. And if you're trading him on draft night, are you really going to give higher than a 7th round pick for a guy that you might not be able to re-sign? But if you, just draft day trades, there's no talk ahead of them, right? Well, like you're not thinking they would have to for it to be worth it for us to get value. It would have to be a trade like, hey, they work out a contract of him playing left tackle for him, and we make the trade and we get a better pick out of it, like a 4th or 5th rounder.
Hmm.
I don't think he's any higher than honestly, I don't think he's any higher than 5th if we were to even if someone would extend him, just because we've driven his value so low playing him at guard for how many years. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're fans of Cleveland, man. Here, we just like every other player. If we're gonna misuse them, let's misuse a guy that's cheaper and not like we were like Alexander Madison is not getting any rushing. Let's trade him to get better value, and then we re-sign him, and that makes us think Cook is gone. Well, we've been misusing him. We might as well let Alexander run the ball, right? So it's always like we just misuse people here on offense. Apparently,
Yeah.
um,
And
block for
Ezra too,
Madison.
if
Yeah, good
he's
point.
yeah, exactly, Bob. And if he does want a second contract at guard, um, that guard market's getting rich. Ben Powers just went from Baltimore to Denver for 4 years, 52. Chris Lindstrom just reset it 5 years, 105 at guard. So he's probably going to want either to convert to tackle on his next team, or he's going to want big time guard money, which is starting to get to be pretty legitimate money on this market. So one way or the other, I think you're best suited to draft his replacement this year. Let whoever that is get a year in the system, get to second year before they're starting, or push him or Ed Ingram for a starting job and render either of those guys replaceable. So the next guy I want to talk about is Chandler Zavala, and this might be the diamond who's actually in the rough.
Going to the
289,
deep rough here, guys.
deep
Deep rough.
rough,
This is where
deep rough.
Johnny Diamonds.
Yeah,
Finding diamonds in
get
the
the
rough.
9 irons out. Chandler Zavala out of NC State, blocked next to 7th overall pick Ikem Ekwonu, 6th overall pick. Yeah, Giants were 5-7. 6th overall pick to Carolina, Ikem Ekwonu, just a couple years back or last year, and they were a nasty offensive line. And I think everything they did there will really translate to the NFL. They did a lot. I mean, they ran every blocking scheme. They ran every run scheme. They ran wide zone, tight zone, counter, power, all really effectively. I mean, the guy pulls like an animal. He has a very strong anchor like Steve Avila does. He's a smart ass player. He has an interview with Bootleg Football, EJ Snyder and Brett Coleman. That's awesome. I mean, and he talks about this. He analyzes some of his own film.
I know the video you're talking about. I just wasn't able to listen to it.
Man, just listening to him talk too, he gets it. He's such a smart football player. I think he'd fit right in, and he does have a little bit more of that. Get to the second level. He's a little quicker to the second level, I think, than Avila. Just potentially not as refined of a pass blocker, but he only gave up, what was it, 4 pressures on 422 pass blocking snaps this past season. Pretty good. Avila gave up 11 on 540. Granted, the gauntlet TCU faced going all the way up to the playoff was better competition than Zavala saw on average. But those numbers aren't really anything to sneeze at. He was very solid in pass protection. He's played left guard, left tackle, and right tackle at the college level. He says he's comfortable at center, but he just hasn't taken any game snaps there. So he's a guy who really has a depth of understanding of the entire offensive line. So
he's a big dude too, isn't he?
6'5", 325.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I thought he was a little bit taller.
He almost looks like it, yeah. But he's a guy who maybe year one could be a swing tackle if one of the guys goes down. He's a guy who could push Ingram or
hand size. What's these two guards' hand size? What's Avila's and what's Zavala's?
Give me a short amount of time.
Because I don't mind shorter arms on a guard, but
right,
hand size is amazing to me on any player.
Exactly. I'll jump to it in a second here.
Not just quarterbacks. It's not just quarterbacks. Hand size works for every position.
And that's one thing about Addison, actually, is he does have pretty small hands for.
Oh, he does? I don't want him
for the class. Right, yeah.
I don't want him.
So Steve Avila, 9.25-inch hands, 78-inch wingspan, 33-inch arms, which is passable. 33 is kind of the threshold where if it's sub 33, they're gonna analyze things.
9.25.
Chandler's 9.25.
What's Chandler's?
Chandler Zavala's got some catcher's mitts, 10.5-inch.
There you go. That's what's his
in the class.
What's his arms?
He's got 32 and 7/8-inch arms. So basically,
I don't care about. That's not for a guard. I don't care. It's like 34 and 35-inch arms on a guard are like useless.
Right.
But on a tackle they're great, but on a guard they're useless. So I like give me some hands, man. 10.5-inch hands on a guard. Yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah, and if Zavala can get the paws on you, he is really strong through your pads. He doesn't give up much ground. And this is a guy who, again, I think you can get really great value on later in the draft. I'm sure scouts are privy to him by this point. He's a late riser on a lot of big boards. But again, this is an early day 3 type of value, late day 2 type of value where, I think, especially if and Kwesi's been one to kind of identify his guys. A lot of people thought Caleb Evans was a reach. He was, according to consensus boards. Ed Ingram was a reach, according to consensus boards. But if this is a guy they identify, I think he fits the bill, and I think he corrects a lot of issues that we had with Ezra Cleveland at guard and potentially Bradbury at center. Both of these guys could contend at center if they have a whole camp there, in my opinion. They're definitely heady enough to do so. Avila has the experience there. Zavala claims to be comfortable there in practice reps anyway. So I love both of these guys. I kind of went with a more coveted guy to a later round guy we could grab there.
And then we go back to your favorite team from TCU, Kendry Miller, running back.
This is me as a horned frog.
Johnny Horned Frog. Johnny Horned Frog in the house talking about TCU players. This is the TCU network. Thank you for showing up.
Purple,
Horned Frogs all the way. Horned Frogs all the way. Let's go. Let's Horned Frog. All right. Tell me about the running backs we don't need because we got too many of them coming out of our ears. Let's go. Kendry Miller. Well, this is obviously if we trade Cook, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But that seems pretty.
Are these late guys? Because I didn't look at a single running back in this.
Yes, these are both outside of the consensus top 100. And Kendry Miller is a guy who I talked about no wasted movement with A.T. Perry. And this is a guy who does not waste any movement. He doesn't dance. He identifies the hole he's supposed to hit quickly. Even when he's juking or making a guy miss, it's not these jump cuts. It's very quick footwork. He's a very subtle changer of direction. So he's very north and south for that reason. And once he's to the second level, it's just like he corrects his course by like 8 degrees, and he just makes you miss just enough to not lose acceleration and to not lose speed. And I think that's it's some of what we had from Dalvin Cook. He was a short area cutter. Adrian Peterson was a big jump cutter, and you see some of those in the draft as well. Bijan Robinson's a big old jump cutter. But this guy is very deliberate, and like I said, he doesn't waste any movement. He has really good short area contact balance. He's strong in the red zone. He fights for extra yards. He's got a lot of Alexander Madison to him in that regard.
I thought both of the guys that you put on this list could fight for extra yards.
Yeah, I think they're very hard runners, and I think they compare to Madison that way. I think they'd be excellent complements to the slew of backs we've got right now, especially if we move on from Cook. It's average long speed. It's not a guy who's gonna break the long one. I think if we're setting up deliberate running back screens, you're looking at a Ty Chandler or a Kenny Nwangwu to execute that for you, or you get a receiver who's going to be strong in the screen game and quicker and a little more bursty. But again, it's a guy who's going to be really strong in the trenches, going to fight for extra yards, and convert in the short red zone, something that Dalvin Cook has lacked, and a reason you and I specifically have been clamoring, hey, why don't we give Madison these short yardage touches? And he's been an Iron Man, Madison, but if his touches increase and he gets injured, this is a guy who I think can really replicate everything he brings to the table, maybe with a higher ceiling as well. And he's got a lot of pro-style experience going all the way to the playoff. He's played against really tough competition, and he's been really good. He's a fine.
What's his measurables and all that? What do we got going on here?
Yeah, so he is. Oh, I guess I've only got McBride's down. So he's.
Was he?
I'll pull up
Did
his whole thing
did he
here
catch the
quick.
football for TCU at all?
They didn't do a ton of it. They were throwing a lot of quick stuff to the receivers, trying to get them out in space a
I
little
saw
bit more.
that. I saw that's how
Um,
they kind of ran their offense.
yeah, and I think there's a little bit to be desired there, at least on tape. But I have no reason to believe he doesn't have that in his bag. Um, just yeah, their offense was a lot of. I mean, if he was getting those, a lot of it was like a touch pass on him coming around the edge. Like it was a lot of interesting things. 5'11", 215. Did not run the 40. But I mean, this is a guy who's not even 21 yet, and he could really. And they went with a really young guy like Madison, who's not even quite 25 yet, and he's on his second contract. Like they're
He's the youngest running back on our team right now.
right. And this guy presents similar value in that regard. He's got a lot of touches in college, but not necessarily a ton of mileage. He's only got a couple years getting serious touches, and he's still very,
Where's
very
this
young.
guy projected?
He is 111 on the big consensus big board right now. You're definitely going to find boards that have him higher. You're definitely going to find mocks that have him higher. But he's kind of
That's like late. That's the 4th round, isn't it?
yeah, he's in that 5 to 10 group as far as running back rankings go on a lot of people's
Yeah, I mean, I
board.
could see it. My hope, if we do trade down and we accumulate a lot of, accumulate these picks, and we get these guys that are showing out for us,
Yeah,
and all these guys on the board, I think are worth. If you could get a running back of his caliber, which I thought was good, in
yeah.
the 5th round, that you get the better value. I think Ty Chandler was a better in a 6th round. What was it? 5th? Where would we get him? 5th round? Yeah,
He
Naylor
was
was 6th round.
5th.
So
Yep.
I thought Ty Chandler was better than a 5th round guy, just because of
Mhm.
his production and all around back, and his speed's elite, 4.36. That's why I'm not really high on running backs, but you got one here, Dwayne McBride, running back out of UAB.
Yeah.
I worry about the competition, but I know what you're seeing in him.
hmm Yeah, and real quick too, like running back and guard are one of very few positions where historically more Pro Bowlers have come from
Deeper in the draft, yeah.
deeper in the draft than day one. Um, a lot of that's
Mm,
turned into a positional value thing.
Pacheco they got in the 7th round, so
Right. Right. Exactly. But Dwayne McBride's a little bit of a different style of runner to Kendre Miller, but the end results often the same. The process is a little different. He's 5'11", 20 or 5'10", 209, but he looks taller than Miller. He runs very upright.
I was gonna say he kind of reminded me of who was our running back we had recently in 2017. He went to the Saints. What's his name? He was a Raider for years.
Yes. What the hell is his name? Latavius Murray.
Latavius Murray.
Yeah.
But he wasn't. He's not as big as Latavius, obviously. But that's the kind of running style he had.
Yeah. Someone said about Dwayne McBride, Arian Foster, and that's something I
That
can't
too. Yeah.
unsee.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah,
And
similar
the TCU
that way.
guy, he kind of reminded me of LaDainian Tomlinson, but obviously no one's
Yeah,
LaDainian
he's
Tomlinson.
listed taller, but he runs more compact. Um, this is a guy who, like, you see a lot of the way he dodges ankle tackles. Like he has a great high step. Just kind of getting his feet above the reach tackles. He's also got that side step where he kind of, which is dangerous, but he's got that side step where he kind of brings the ball over and over the arm tackle and dodges it that way and shoves it off his torso. There's a lot of those kind of things, and he also too he finishes the hell out of runs. You saw him, make contact at the 7 and push it to the end zone on a lot of his touchdowns. This is
I'm
a guy
watching
who
this.
had,
I'm watching this highlight reel of him, and I'm like, the whole time I'm thinking he doesn't have breakaway speed. He doesn't have breakaway speed. Then all of a sudden, they show 80-yard breakaway touchdowns, and nobody's catching him. And I was
yep,
like, what the hell was I? Was it a different competition or what? Or
yeah,
maybe that little cornerback was really fast and caught him. But
mhm.
he has it. What's his 40 time?
He actually did not run the 40 either.
Nobody wants to run the 40 anymore. It's ridiculous. It's
Yes.
like the only thing you used to do
Yeah,
was run the 40.
yeah. So it's all eye test on these guys. But this is a guy who, over the past 2 seasons, 21 and 22, accounted for 3,068 yards on the ground and 32 touchdowns. So yeah, there's the UAB thing, there's the competition. But hey, very, very similar to that insane production we saw from Madison in college. I know I've mentioned him a lot on this podcast for talking about draft prospects, but a similar thing. The smaller school, insane production that it's tough to really knock when it's that high level. One of the most productive backs in Division One. Just a slightly different style to Kendre Miller. But you're right, kind of more like a Latavius Murray, kind of more like a Justice Hill, if you will. But maybe even like a Joe Mixon kind of guy. But I think he would provide that workhorse type of value. And if Cook does move on, I think a guy like that getting into the mix could be pretty valuable, especially if Wangwu is your designated kick returner, and maybe plays on offense. Then you're really going to want a hierarchy of 3 backs. And maybe it is a little bit more running back by committee this year, a little bit more run heavy, and to keep those guys fresh, I think McBride or Miller would be awesome additions to the running back room.
Let's pull all these guys up. Can you kind of tell me, like, the guy with the best value? Like, you think where we could get him? Where would that, like, let's go with receiver on this. What receiver on here do you think we would get the best value out of if we were where we would get them at? Where do you think we would get them at?
Yeah, if we're talking value, it's A.T. Perry all day. I think that there are, like, I'll pull up to where exactly he is on this particular big board, just receiver specific. But he's a guy too that, like, I think what he's going to provide day one is pretty close to in line with a lot of these top prospects. I don't see a huge discrepancy between what we'd get from A.T. Perry and what we'd get from, say, Quentin Johnston, especially right away. Now, again, Johnston, a little bit more dynamic as a ball carrier. But specifically, right away, A.T. Perry's projected 3rd to 4th round, in the like 12 to 15 range on receivers specifically. And, I think when you're considering, spending a 1st round pick on receiver, I don't think you're getting an equal value disparity between taking a guy 1st round and taking an A.T. Perry in the late 3rd. I think that trade-off is pretty minimal compared to the difference in investment. So I'm A.T. Perry there all day. And Cedric Tillman's also a guy who I think could fall a lot further than he should. Hyatt is sort of Hyatt and Mims are sort of the opposite for me.
The
where
thing
it's like,
about what you just mentioned there, Mims. You said Mims, right? I'm like thinking
at the end, yeah, Hyatt and Mims are sort of the opposite, where they might be a little. I feel they might be a little overvalued on a lot of consensus boards, where we'd be investing a little bit more than we need to in a player of that ilk.
like I'm the president of the Jalen Naylor fan club, um,
Yeah.
place over, and I feel like we already have that, and we got that late, and I think and I listed him as our best value in our draft last year. After the
Mm,
draft, like after the draft, and I started looking at everybody. I go, okay, Jalen Naylor's our number one value in this draft. And then I said Ty Chandler, and then I went Booth Jr. But I just, yeah, he would be another good guy to have on the team, no doubt. And if it's late, it's late, great. Then we got competition. I just
right.
hate the fact that we might keep a guy from getting a chance. Like a Jalen Naylor, like we screwed over Thielen for 3 years.
Yeah.
We didn't even dress Diggs for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
We didn't start Justin Jefferson, and I'm like, God, I think we got a guy. He liked Diggs. He got hurt in college, and then he fell in the draft,
Hmm.
that's I love to see if we're gonna get a guy. I agree. The guy I was gonna pick, like I said on my stipulation, was A.T. Perry because you said exactly what I would have said is that yeah, you could get Quentin Johnson. I'm in love with that guy now,
Yeah.
and then but then you can get like his A.T. Perry 2 rounds later is clone almost.
Yeah.
He's again, but he doesn't have that open field ability, but he has it.
Right.
He just doesn't have it in spades like Quentin Johnson does.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I would not cry if we got Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson, or A.T. Perry at any point in this draft. I would be pretty
Yeah.
happy with that.
And like you
Sorry,
mentioned,
Jalen.
Naylor.
Sorry, Naylor.
Yeah. Like you mentioned with Naylor, like I'm all for opportunities for Jalen Naylor as well, and I think you'd see some more redundancy with Naylor if you take a guy like Mims, if you take a guy like even
Yeah,
Hyatt a little bit. But A.T. Perry, Cedric Tillman, really
I want a
bring something.
taller guy. I want a taller guy, and
Exactly, they really bring something
I
different to the
know
table than
Flowers
what we
isn't.
have.
Flowers is a different cat, but Johnson
Yes,
and Perry, I like that they're tall,
yes,
and they have body control. They came back to balls, or like you said, laid hands, and they contorted to get a ball. When it was just an awkward throw. It was placed awkwardly, so they had to do something to get that extra grab. Now,
yeah,
all the guys you mentioned here are pretty
yeah.
good at it. Maybe
Guys who I
Hyatt's the
feel like
only
hit their
Hyatt.
growth spurt pretty early, like they're used to being tall and long. Like they.
Yeah, right. Good point. And then the only
Mhm.
guy here, Jalen Hyatt, is maybe the one trick pony that the Raiders would probably take in the top 10 back in the day,
It's a Raiders
just because
fan.
he's
Yeah,
so fast.
yeah.
But yeah, and we got Jalen Naylor. He's fast. His freaking nickname Speedy Naylor. So let's go. Let's
Hmm.
go.
Yep.
What do we got here? It's competition, Dave. Naylor just needs to step up to be better, which I am also a Naylor believer. I do believe Naylor was injured, right? For a while. But when he did step in, he was good.
Yeah.
He was good, man. It was like his
Hmm.
first 5 catches were first downs, and then he
Yeah.
caught that touchdown in the Bears game.
Yep.
So pretty awesome.
And
I like our situation. I
yeah.
think adding another body that is elite, like Perry could be in the third round, I would be freaking ecstatic. I thought we won the draft. That's what
Yeah.
I'll be
That'd be a
thinking.
huge one.
We got if we got some difference maker on defense in that first pick, and then we got A.T. Perry in the third round. Be like, dudes, let's step aside. We're picking 32 next year. No,
Yeah. And Dylan, I almost put your guy Charlie Jones over Marvin Mims. I almost did it. Um, and he might be a better pro. I just think the Mims ceiling might be a tiny bit higher. But that's a similar guy.
I gave a I put inflection in the wrong area. That's not how, that was not my tone. Dylan says that was not my tone. No, I was kidding, man. What was
It's
it? It's
competition.
competition, Dave. Naylor just needs to step up. I'm sorry, I didn't. I'm pretty sarcastic, man. I know you weren't. I know you weren't doing that. I was putting the tone in there for you. I appreciate, man. Thanks for
No
coming
problem,
on.
Mafia. Skull.
Yeah, Skull. Hey, were you here the whole time, Skull Mafia? I don't know, man. We didn't have we topped out at about 15, 16 people in here. It's pretty good. I'll probably see more views on it. I sent out to Facebook. That's why I was looking down my phone the whole time. I would just let Johnny talk, and I would go down on the phone. But hey, we're gonna have a follow-up show on defense next Thursday. So Johnny's
Yes.
going to go back to the diamond mine and pick out a few guys. We're probably going to get TCU's defense filling all 10 spots. TCU's defense, because as you can tell, he's a big TCU fan. He might sprinkle in a couple of Vols. He might. He might.
Here and there.
And God knows he went and got UAB running back because they're a hotbed of talent. But no, I mean, look at this. This is I mean, you don't see any Alabama in here. You don't see any, USC. He went after some guys on teams that aren't the top echelon. So we're finding them.
I've got an awesome archive of college all 22 that I've been sinking my teeth into. Shout out Coach Johnny Croyle. He coaches over at Minnetonka in Minnesota, actually. So big ups to him for hooking that up for me. But I've got a bunch more to get to, and I'm really excited to dive into the defense. I think it might be tough to stop at 10 players for the defense. I know we have some more needs on that side. I kind of had to, I don't know, I kind of had to find some extra guys on this one just because I think the offense is a lot closer. But we'll have more positions for sure on defense, and if it's 10 guys,
when you pick up a guy, type his name and give me a picture and send it to me.
Sounds good.
And that way I'll just put him into a slideshow next time.
Sounds good.
Skull Mafia, he showed up late, man. Damn
Unreal.
you! And I was even inviting people on the show. I know you're a little gun shy when it comes on, but hey, no one took me up on my offer today. I got a Twitter troll last week coming on my show. I couldn't get any of my regulars to come on. I feel bad. I want to hear what you guys got to say. But hey, thanks for everybody. Thank you for everybody who participated. Appreciate it, man. Make sure you hit like if you're still listening. Make sure you hit like. That way we Hulk smash the YouTube algorithm. Let's go. Any last words, man?
Just come back for next week. We might see some more applicable day one starters when we get to the defense. I think that's going to be a lot more fun.
Hey Dylan, earlier on before I saw his list, I had to put out a thumbnail that was a dummy thumbnail, and then I took it off when I found out DTR was not on his list.
So, and I'm a DTR guy.
So yeah, he didn't put any quarterbacks on his list, so I thought it was stupid that I had a quarterback as the thumbnail. So yeah, but hey, I did do a show on DTR. So go to my regular show, Skull World, and go look for it. I did a video on DTR, so it's covered. I like him, and right now NFL has him like 10th. After 8, but I think 10th on this list, man. Because I'm creating slideshows for our draft special we're gonna do, and I only went down to DTR because I was like, you have him like 10th. I'm not gonna have 10 quarterbacks aren't getting drafted in this draft, I don't think. So we'll see. Hey, Mary, Chicken Soup for the Soul, great show, thank you. Bob Sweet, awesome. My worthless opinion, of course, shows
another good opinion.
I want some good opinions, man, and you have them. So yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks, gentlemen. Skull, everyone. Skull, let's go. Yeah, you said it wasn't shifty. Hey, what?
Oh, DTR maybe.
I don't know. Said he wasn't shifty. Okay, so yeah. He was. I did mention he wasn't shifty at one point because the videos I was seeing, he was getting ran down, and I just didn't think he was shifty enough. But God, when he had an open lane, he took off. He had the speed. Now I might have been complete. I'm only watching like one video on him, but Yeah, I'm probably completely wrong on that, but I love a lot of things about him. Now, what I do hear is that maybe he doesn't have accuracy down the field, but just the fact that he's so athletically talented, he is 6'2", he doesn't play that tall. It doesn't seem. I did watch the video of the QB school doing on him, and he mentioned all the same things I did. I just said the things I agreed with him on, and one of them was that he has this. He's fast, but maneuverability in the pocket wasn't there. I don't know. I could be completely wrong and often am. Thanks, but hey, Skull Mafia, thanks for showing up. Just if you want to listen to the
Appreciate you,
10
man.
guys that Johnny Diamond Football here has, I'm gonna keep adding to his nickname. I think it's catchy.
Yeah.
So yeah, go check those out. I don't know anything about most of those guys, so I was just taking it all in. Oh, you were
Good.
you were here, man. I appreciate it. Make
I'm
sure you
glad. I
say
didn't want to
hi
talk
though.
about
Make
these
sure
guys.
if you come on, make sure you say hi so we know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. That's it.
Comments help that algorithm too. Keep commenting.
Yeah, it helps the show spread. You got to hit like, you got to chat a little bit, got to say hi. That way it goes out. Otherwise, we're just talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
This show is supposed to be about you guys giving us your viewpoint, telling us who you like, and that's who we'll talk about. But next time, think about your defensive players you want, because we're going to be talking about them. Go also, do your homework.
Everybody's still on. You can get at me on Twitter. If there's somebody you want me to look at, I'll watch some film between now and then. And if I like them enough, we'll get them on the show. And at the very least, I'll give you my spiel on them.
What's your Twitter handle?
But let me know who you like. At John B. Boyd 12. At John B. Boyd 12.
At John B. Boyd 12.
I'll drop it in the comment.
JBBB 12.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys.
That's it for today, guys. Thank you. It's over. Oh, we got one last comment. My comments are all over tonight. Killer show, gentlemen. Thanks, Dylan. See you next week, Thursday. Same time, same place. Skull Vikes.